After my wife returned from a trip abroad, she shut me out for weeks and blamed exhaustion. Then suddenly, she said she wanted to fix our marriage and have a baby. I agreed, smiled, and planned a family dinner. But that night, instead of a toast, I revealed something that changed everything. Before I tell you how everything collapsed, do me one small favor, stay with me until the end and let me know where you're watching from so my story will reach most of the people. My name is Evan Carter. I'm 38 years old and work quality assurance at Redline Systems, a manufacturing firm just outside Fort Collins, Colorado. I've been married to Lena for 8 years. She's a senior brand strategist at a downtown marketing firm, the kind of job that comes with frequent flights, late nights, and constant pressure to look impressive. For most of our marriage, I never questioned her travel. Conferences, client meetings, strategy retreats, it was normal. I trusted her. That trust had been built over years of shared routines, small sacrifices, and the quiet understanding that we were building something together. Or at least, that's what I believed. The announcement came on a Tuesday night while we were eating dinner. Lena mentioned she'd be flying to Lisbon for 2 weeks. A wellness retreat, she said. Yoga, mindfulness, digital detox. Her college friend Maya would be joining her. She said it while cutting her food, eyes fixed on the plate, voice casual. I didn't react. I asked a few neutral questions, when she was leaving, when she'd be back. The answers came easily. Too easily. Later that night, while she showered, her phone buzzed on the dresser. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't looking for anything. But the screen lit up, and the calendar app was open. I noticed the dates didn't match what she'd told me. Off by a few days. It was a small detail. But small details are how lies announce themselves. Over the past 6 months, Lena had been changing in ways I couldn't quite name. She worked later. Took calls in the hallway. Her phone was always face down. She'd started dressing differently, more polished, more deliberate, even for routine errands. New perfume. New gym routine. She said it was about confidence. Confidence for what? When I asked about her day, I got summaries instead of stories. She used to tell me everything, office gossip, client disasters, jokes she heard at lunch. Now it felt like she was giving a press release. The night before she left, I helped her pack. She'd bought clothes I'd never seen before. Dresses that didn't fit the idea of meditation halls and yoga mats. Lingerie still tagged. When I commented, she laughed and said the retreat had formal dinners. Maybe. But she packed like someone planning to be admired, not relaxed. At the airport, she kissed my cheek and smiled. "You'll miss me," she said. "I always do," I replied, watching her walk away in heels she usually reserved for high-stakes presentations. That night, the house felt wrong. Too quiet. Too empty. I replayed the last few months in my head and realized something uncomfortable. I'd been adjusting constantly while she was slowly stepping out of reach. When Lena wanted to pursue her executive certification, I covered more expenses and took on more at home. When her travel increased, I rearranged my schedule. I believed that's what partnership looked like, taking turns carrying the weight. But partnership only works when both people are still carrying something. I called my brother Mark, who lives in New Mexico with his family. He listened without interrupting as I explained the trip, the calendar mismatch, the feeling I couldn't shake. "If your instincts are talking," he said finally, "it's because they've noticed something your heart doesn't want to admit yet." I didn't want to be suspicious. I wanted to be wrong. A few days into her trip, Lena called me. She was crying. Said the retreat wasn't what she expected. Said the food was awful. Said Maya was sick. Said she missed me. Her voice sounded, performed. Like she was acting sadness instead of feeling it. Behind her, I heard music. Laughter. Dishes clinking. Conversations in a language I didn't understand. "Where are you right now?" I asked gently. "In my room," she said. Trying not to wake Maya. The noise didn't stop. After the call ended, I didn't text her back. I didn't confront her. I left work early and drove home, my hand steady on the wheel, my thoughts strangely clear. In our bedroom, I looked through the things she'd left behind. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. Hidden beneath a jewelry tray, I found a hotel card. Not a retreat. A luxury hotel. Her handwriting on the back. A room number. And 2 words that made my chest go cold. I sat on the edge of the bed holding that card until the light outside faded. Every piece suddenly clicked into place, the late nights, the new clothes, the careful stories. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I didn't break anything. I made 3 phone calls. One to my brother. One to a divorce attorney recommended by a coworker. And one to a private investigator whose card I'd kept after she helped a neighbor years ago. "I need facts," I said. "And I need proof." Because Lena thought she was building a new future. And I had just stopped being the man who didn't look too closely. Patience changes when you stop hoping and start preparing. The morning after I found the hotel card, I woke up earlier than usual. The house was quiet, exactly the way Lena liked it when she was away. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the card again. Luxury hotels don't hand these out casually. They don't belong in jewelry boxes. And they definitely don't belong to women attending wellness retreats. I didn't confront her. I didn't text her questions. I didn't let myself spiral into theories. I needed facts. Anything else would only make me emotional, and emotion was exactly what would ruin me if I acted too soon. The private investigator's name was Claire Holden. I still had her card from years ago, back when she helped a neighbor prove his wife was hiding assets during a divorce. She answered on the third ring. "I think my wife is having an affair," I said. There was no judgment in her voice. "When do you want to know for sure?" We met that afternoon at a cafe near Old Town. Claire was calm, professional, and efficient. No dramatic reactions, no unnecessary sympathy. She asked for names, dates, workplaces, travel details. When I told her about Lisbon, the hotel card, and the man from her office she kept mentioning, Claire nodded slowly. "This isn't spontaneous," she said. "This looks planned." She explained the process. International documentation. Surveillance abroad. Digital records. Everything timestamped, everything verified. Evidence that would stand up in court, not just convince me emotionally. I signed the agreement and paid the retainer without hesitation. For the first time since Lena boarded that plane, I felt something close to control. Claire's associate in Portugal located Lena within 24 hours. She wasn't at a retreat. She wasn't even pretending to be. She was staying at a luxury hotel near the waterfront with Adrian Costa, a senior strategist from her firm, the same man she'd casually mentioned for months as brilliant, insightful, and helpful on late projects. They shared a suite, dined publicly, held hands like people who didn't believe anyone was watching. I didn't look at the photos right away. Claire warned me. "Once you see them, there's no going back." She was right. I waited until I was home, sitting alone in my office, before opening the file. I scrolled slowly. Each image felt clinical, impersonal, like evidence from someone else's life. And yet, there she was, my wife, laughing, leaning into another man, wearing the dresses she told me were for meditation dinners. I didn't cry. I didn't feel rage. I felt resolved. Lena called me again that night. She complained about the food. Said the yoga instructors were disappointing. Said she couldn't wait to come home and reset her priorities. I told her I missed her. I told her to enjoy the rest of her trip. While she spoke, I opened another file Claire had sent, hotel registration records with both their names. When Lena returned a week later, I was waiting at the airport with flowers and a smile. She hugged me tightly, like someone relieved her performance had been convincing. "How was your trip?" I asked. "Transformative," she said. "I learned so much about myself." She unpacked slowly that night, telling me stories about meditation circles and plant-based meals. I listened carefully, noting every inconsistency. She showed me souvenirs that could have been bought anywhere. She claimed exhaustion and avoided intimacy, saying she needed time to process everything she'd learned. I gave her all the space she wanted. Claire kept working. She uncovered months of communication between Lena and Adrian, texts, emails, encrypted messaging apps. Their affair didn't start in Portugal. It started here. Late nights at work. Client dinners. Strategy sessions. Hotels booked under false names. Payments carefully spaced to avoid attention. Then came the detail that changed everything. A medical appointment in Lisbon. A private clinic specializing in women's health. Claire didn't speculate. She verified. Lena wasn't just cheating. She was pregnant. The timeline made my hands go numb. The dates lined up perfectly with the trip. Not with me. A week later, Lena sat me down at the kitchen table with a soft smile and nervous excitement. "I have news," she said. "Good news." She told me she was pregnant. Claimed the doctor said conception happened weeks after she returned. She watched my face carefully, measuring my reaction. I stood up, pulled her into my arms, and congratulated her. Inside, something hardened completely. Over the next few weeks, she leaned into the role. Prenatal vitamins. Doctor appointments. Baby name lists. She talked about our future like it was finally real. I played my part just as convincingly. While she planned nurseries, I planned timing. While she built a story, I built a record. I consulted with a divorce attorney. DNA testing protocols. Financial exposure. Asset protection. I followed instructions precisely. No confrontations. No accusations. Let her commit fully to the lie. When Lena suggested announcing the pregnancy with a family dinner, I agreed enthusiastically. I even suggested the restaurant. That was the moment the end stopped being abstract and became scheduled. Because some truths don't need to be shouted. They only need the right room. Once the date was set, everything slowed down and sped up at the same time. Lena became radiant in a way I hadn't seen in years. She talked about the baby constantly, touching her stomach when she thought no one was watching, smiling to herself like she was already rewriting our future in her head. She believed she'd succeeded. Not just in hiding the affair, but in reshaping reality itself. I watched her carefully. Not with anger anymore, but with a kind of detached curiosity. It amazed me how easily someone could live inside a lie once they'd convinced themselves it was necessary. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't nervous. She was excited. That told me everything. The dinner was scheduled for a Friday night at Bellini's, an upscale Italian restaurant near the riverfront. It was a place we'd celebrated anniversaries and promotions before, familiar, comfortable, associated with good memories. I wanted her relaxed. Confident. Certain. The guest list grew quickly. Both our parents. Siblings. A few close friends. Couples we'd vacationed with. 25 people in total. Enough witnesses that the truth couldn't be brushed aside later as a misunderstanding or a private dispute. Claire prepared everything with surgical precision. Each folder contained the same materials, arranged in the same order. Hotel registrations from Lisbon showing Lena and Adrian sharing a suite. Photographs with timestamps and GPS data. Restaurant receipts. Flight records. Medical documentation establishing the pregnancy timeline. Nothing emotional. Nothing dramatic. Just facts. Once this happens, Claire said during our final meeting, there's no controlling the fallout. People will react differently. Some will be angry. Some will be quiet. Some will want explanations. You need to decide now how much you'll say. I'll say only what's necessary, I replied. The documents can speak. That night, Lena tried on 3 different dresses before settling on a soft blue one. She looked beautiful. Happy. She asked me if I was nervous. Just want everything to go smoothly, I said. She squeezed my hand. You're going to be such a good father. I didn't trust myself to respond, so I just smiled. At the restaurant, the room buzzed with warmth and anticipation. Everyone knew something was being announced. They assumed it was good news. Lena floated from table to table, laughing, hugging people, glowing under the attention. I watched her parents beam with pride. My mother wiped away tears before anything had even been said. When dessert arrived, I stood and tapped my glass. The room quieted. Thank you all for being here, I began. We asked you to join us tonight because there's something important we need to share. Lena reached for my hand, her smile wide and expectant. Before I continued, I placed a folder in front of each guest. I want everyone to look through these first. Confusion rippled across the room as people opened them. The silence deepened with every page turned. Someone gasped softly. A fork clinked against a plate. Lena's smile faltered. What is this? She whispered. I stayed calm. These documents show where Lena actually spent her trip, who she was with, and when. Her mother froze mid-page. My father leaned forward, reading carefully. One of our friends looked up at me, eyes wide. The medical records explain the pregnancy timeline, I continued. The dates make it impossible for me to be the father. The room went completely still. Lena stood abruptly. This is insane, she said. You're humiliating me. I'm clarifying, I replied. There's a difference. Her father looked at her, disbelief etched across his face. Lena, he said quietly, is this true? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Looked around the room. No one was smiling anymore. I can explain, she said finally. But explanations only work when there's doubt. And doubt was gone. One of Lena's friends spoke up. You told me you were with Maya. Maya, sitting at the far end of the table, shook her head slowly. I never went anywhere, she said. You told me Evan knew. That was the moment the story collapsed completely. I announced that I'd filed for divorce. That DNA testing would confirm what the documents already showed. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult her. I didn't need to. The truth had arrived fully formed. Lena left the room in tears. Her parents followed a few minutes later, not speaking to her. The dinner ended quietly, people gathering their things, offering me apologies I didn't ask for. I stayed behind after everyone left, sitting alone at the table where we'd planned to celebrate a future that never existed. For the first time in weeks, I exhaled. Because the lie was finally out in the open. And nothing she said next would matter. The fallout didn't come all at once. It came in waves. The first wave hit before the night was even over. My phone started buzzing as soon as I left the restaurant. Missed calls. Texts. Messages from people who had just watched Lena's carefully built image crack in real time. Some were confused. Some were angry on my behalf. A few were stunned into silence and didn't know what to say at all. I didn't answer anyone. I drove home alone, parked in the driveway, and sat there with the engine off for a long time. The house looked the same from the outside. Lights on. Curtains drawn. Normal. But I knew the version of my life that had existed inside those walls was already gone. Lena wasn't home when I walked in. Her keys were gone. A suitcase was missing from the closet. She hadn't come back after leaving the restaurant. Later, I learned she'd gone straight to her parents' house, but at the time, I didn't care where she went. I felt empty, not broken. Like something toxic had finally drained out of me. That night, I slept better than I had in months. The next morning, reality began asserting itself. Lena called me at 6:12 a.m. I let it ring. She called again at 6:14. And again at 6:17. I blocked her number. An hour later, her mother called. I answered that one. "Evan," she said, her voice unsteady, "we need to talk." "I don't," I replied gently. "But you can talk to the lawyers if you need clarification. Everything is documented." There was a long pause on the other end. "I raised her better than this," she whispered. "I believe you," I said. And I meant it. The legal process moved faster than I expected. Because of the documentation, because of the attempted deception, because of the pregnancy timeline, Lena's position was weak from the start. Very weak. Her attorney requested mediation. My attorney declined. We went straight to filings. Lena tried to regain control by reframing the narrative. She told people she'd felt trapped in our marriage. That she'd been emotionally neglected. That the pregnancy had been a confusing situation and that she'd planned to tell me eventually. But stories don't survive evidence. The DNA test results arrived 3 weeks later. Adrian was confirmed as the father. That ended any remaining debate. Her attorney shifted strategy. Instead of contesting the facts, they tried to limit the damage. They pushed for a quiet settlement. No courtroom. No public testimony. No dragging out the humiliation. I agreed. Not for her sake, but for mine. I didn't need a spectacle. I already had closure. The divorce was finalized in just under 4 months. Lena walked away with her personal belongings and a small cash settlement. No spousal support. No claim to my retirement. No leverage. The judge didn't lecture her. He didn't need to. He simply stated that the evidence spoke clearly and that intentional misrepresentation regarding paternity undermined her credibility entirely. I watched her sit there, shoulders slumped, eyes hollow. She didn't look like the confident woman who'd kissed me goodbye at the airport months earlier. She looked like someone who had finally run out of places to hide. Social consequences followed fast. Mutual friends chose sides without drama. Not because I asked them to, but because the situation left little room for neutrality. People don't like being lied to. They like it even less when they realize they were almost made complicit in something deeply wrong. Invitations stopped coming for her. Group chats went silent. Her parents stopped defending her once the DNA results came back. I heard later that her father had told her, "I can't protect you from the consequences of your own choices." Adrian disappeared almost immediately. He returned overseas before the divorce was finalized. No public statements. No offers of support. No heroic declarations of love. Just absence. Lena was left alone with a pregnancy she'd planned to weaponize. And that reality hit her harder than anything I could have said. She reached out one last time through her attorney, asking if I would consider counseling. Closure. A conversation. Something to process what we'd been through. I declined. Some doors don't need to be reopened to be closed. I moved out of the house 2 months later. Not because it hurt to stay, but because it no longer felt like mine. Too many memories. Too many moments that now carried a second meaning. I downsized. Smaller place. Cleaner start. The quiet was different this time. Not lonely. Peaceful. People asked me how I stayed so calm through all of it. Why I didn't explode. Why I didn't scream or shame her publicly beyond what had already happened. The truth is simple. By the time the truth came out, I had already grieved the marriage. What happened at the dinner wasn't the end. It was the confirmation. Lena's life unraveled slowly after that. Not dramatically. Just steadily. Jobs became harder to keep. Friendships became strained. Trust became something people no longer offered her easily. That's the real cost of deception. Not punishment. Isolation. As for me, something unexpected happened. I felt lighter. I stopped second-guessing myself. Stopped wondering if I was too trusting. Too patient. Too accommodating. I realized those weren't flaws. They were strengths, just given to the wrong person. Months later, standing in my new kitchen, drinking coffee on a quiet morning, I understood something clearly for the first time. I hadn't lost my marriage. I had escaped a future built on lies. And the child she tried to pass off as mine? That would have destroyed both of us. The truth didn't just save me. It stopped something far worse from ever taking root. And once that realization settled in, I knew this chapter, no matter how painful, had ended exactly the way it needed to. Time doesn't heal everything the way people like to say it does. It doesn't erase. It doesn't rewrite. What it does is strip events down to their truth. It removes the noise, the panic, the adrenaline, and leaves you alone with what actually happened and what it means. That's where I found myself months after the divorce was finalized. Not angry. Not bitter. Just clear. At first, the quiet felt unfamiliar. I wasn't used to coming home to silence without tension hanging in the air. No unspoken questions. No watching facial expressions for signs of distance. No wondering if I was missing something obvious. My apartment felt neutral, like a blank page instead of a battleground. I filled my time slowly. On purpose. I rebuilt routines that had nothing to do with being someone's husband. Morning runs. Cooking meals that didn't need to impress anyone. Fixing small things around the apartment just because I could. I realized how much of my life had been shaped around accommodating Lena's moods, her ambitions, her timelines. Without that weight, I felt oddly steady. People who hadn't spoken to me in years reached out. Old friends. Co-workers. Even distant relatives. Not out of gossip, but curiosity. They wanted to know how I was holding up. Some apologized for not noticing earlier that something was wrong. Others admitted they'd sensed tension but didn't know how to bring it up. I didn't blame them. Deception doesn't announce itself. It hides behind normalcy. Lena faded from my daily thoughts faster than I expected. Not because she didn't matter, but because the version of her I'd loved turned out to be largely imaginary. You can't mourn someone who never truly existed in the way you believed they did. Occasionally, I'd hear updates through indirect channels. She moved again. Smaller place. Different neighborhood. She left her firm quietly. No dramatic exit. Just a transition that wasn't really a transition at all. Clients requested reassignment. Projects dried up. The reputation she'd built on confidence and polish didn't survive scrutiny once trust was gone. The baby was born in early spring. I learned that from a mutual acquaintance who didn't know whether to mention it or not. I told them it was okay. Information no longer had power over me. Adrian wasn't present. He never was. That part didn't surprise me. Men who hide don't suddenly become pillars of responsibility when consequences arrive. Lena had bet everything on the idea that she could control the story. Once she lost that control, there was nothing left for him to gain. I thought about the child more than I thought about her. Not with resentment, but sadness. That child would grow up inside a story built on half-truths and omissions. And one day, questions would come. They always do. But that wasn't my burden to carry. One evening, about a year after everything ended, I ran into Lena unexpectedly. It was at a grocery store near my new place. I was reaching for coffee when I noticed someone standing too still in the aisle beside me. I didn't recognize her at first. She'd changed her hair. Lost weight. Her posture was different, curved inward, defensive. She said my name quietly. I turned. For a moment, neither of us spoke. There was no shock. No rush of emotion. Just recognition. "You look good," she said finally. "So do you," I replied. It wasn't unkind. It also wasn't intimate. She nodded, eyes dropping briefly to the floor. "I heard you moved," she said. "I did." Another pause. "I never got to explain," she added, almost reflexively. I shook my head gently. "You don't need to." She looked up then, really looked at me, as if searching for anger she could respond to. "There isn't anything to explain," I continued. "We both know what happened." Her mouth opened, then closed. "I thought I was doing what I had to," she said softly. "That's usually how people justify things," I replied. "Doesn't make them right." The silence stretched again. "I hope you're happy," she said. "I am," I answered. And for the first time, I knew it was true. She nodded once more, picked up her basket, and walked away. I watched her go, not with triumph, not with regret, but with finality. That was the moment I knew the story was truly over. Life moved forward in small, meaningful ways after that. I changed departments at work. Took on a role that required travel, not because I was running from anything, but because I wanted to say yes to things I'd once postponed for someone else's comfort. I reconnected with friends I'd slowly drifted from during my marriage. We talked honestly about mistakes, about blind spots, about how easy it is to mistake effort for loyalty. I dated again, but carefully. Not out of loneliness. Out of curiosity. I learned to listen to discomfort instead of explaining it away. Learned that trust doesn't mean ignoring patterns. It means paying attention without paranoia. There was one lesson that stayed with me more than any other. Truth doesn't need urgency. Lies do. Everything Lena did required constant maintenance. Timelines. Explanations. Rehearsed emotions. Careful positioning. I saw now how exhausting that must have been. The truth, by contrast, had waited quietly. Patiently. Until it no longer needed permission to surface. Looking back, I don't think exposing her was about punishment. It was about refusal. Refusing to carry someone else's deception. Refusing to live inside a story written without my consent. Refusing to raise a lie as if it were love. People sometimes ask me if I regret how publicly everything unfolded. I don't. Because secrecy only protected the wrong person. And silence would have made me complicit. What happened that night at the restaurant didn't destroy a marriage. It revealed that the marriage had already been destroyed, quietly, carefully, long before I ever suspected it. I didn't win anything. I reclaimed myself. And that, I've learned, is the only outcome that actually lasts. If my story resonated with you, take a moment to support the channel. Your engagement helps these stories reach the people who need them most. And if you've ever faced a truth that changed everything, share where you're watching from or what moment stayed with you. Sometimes saying it out loud is the first step forward.